Real estate investing can bring big reward and big risks. So know your risks. Welcome to the Real Estate Risk Report, the show for real-world insight on real estate investment risk. Now, here's your host, Lance Pederson.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Real Estate Risk Report. I'm your host, Lance Pederson. Today I have with me Freddy Ellis with Watermark Properties and also, Watermark Equity Group. How you doing, Freddy?
I'm doing great, Lance. How about yourself?
Doing really good, man. Yeah, so Freddie's been a busy guy. I've been trying to get Freddie on the show for quite some time. So Freddie and his team, these guys are in the build-to-rent space, which, has been a pretty hot segment, over the last year or so. I think there's a lot of interest in it, especially from even institutional investors are very much kind of into this asset class now, whereas they once were. So, they're very interested in buying build-to-rent communities that are stabilized more often than not. But Freddie and his team are the guys who will, take projects from, dirt to, homes being built and happy families running around and enjoying themselves and their community. So I thought I'd, bring Freddie on and have him sort of share with us how the strategy works. Obviously, we're going to touch on, the various, risks associated with executing the strategy, ways that you can mitigate some of those risks. Just a general introduction to sort of this build to rent strategy that I'm sure many of you, if you haven't heard about it, you will, because, there's lots of guys out there that are, realizing that there's good opportunity as this nation becomes, one of renters, which is more and more people, are choosing to rent rather than own for a variety of reasons. So Freddie, why don't you share with us a little bit about sort of how you got into this? I know that you didn't necessarily set out to say, we're going to get into the build to rent space. You started someplace else. So why don't you tell us about how you got into real estate and what got you into kind of build to rent?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Lance, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Really grateful for the opportunity here. As Lance mentioned, I'm Freddy Ellis with Watermark Equity Group, also known as Watermark Properties. And how we got started is a fairly interesting story. Watermark was co-founded by myself and my partner. And in college, we were dreamers. We always thought that we would start our own company one day. In our infinite wisdom, as 18, 19-year-olds, we always said, real estate development. That's what it's going to be. And so fast forward, after school, our college football coach connected us with a philanthropist in the city of Chicago, who was running a inner city faith-based high school. And because the school was faith-based, they couldn't receive any government support. But all the kids, unfortunately, were lower income and didn't have the means to pay for a tuition. And so being a successful entrepreneur and businessman himself, he set out to create some for-profit ventures to support the school. And this is back in 2011. And as the urban legend goes in the single-family build-to-rent space, Warren Buffett in 2011, around that time, came out in an article and said, if anybody has disposable income right now, they should buy as many single-family homes as they can and rent them out. And a month later, some of the large institutional capital providers in the world started creating these single-family rental companies with the intent to go out and buy as many single-family rental homes as they possibly could. And so back to us at the school and how that was involved with the great Oracle and his investment advice. Was because we operated under the 50C3 or 501c3 of the school, we had a unique ability to be able to source distressed assets. And so that's literally what we did. We started a real estate development company. We built relationships with some of these institutional partners that were buying single family rental homes and renting them out. and we were essentially just operators for them. We would walk homes with them. They'd give us a scope of work, and we turn around and sell it to them. And so it was a win-win for everyone. It was obviously the cash flows were going to support the school. But my partner and I, we realized, you know what, this is something. There's a bigger trend at play here. There's a cultural shift going on in America where you have two tranches of the population. One where unfortunately some people simply don't have the means to buy a home, whether they don't have the discipline to save or they're burdened by student debt or what have you. There's some significantly limiting factors that are preventing them from being just a home. Then you have another pool of the population, which I like to call them, Lance, Amazon Prime people, where they value convenience and flexibility more than anything. They want to realize the benefits of living in a single family home, you more space, your own garage, your own yard, but they want to have nothing to do with the maintenance and all the burdens that come with home ownership. And so fast forward on our journey, we broke off from the school to create our for-profit entity, which is Watermark, with the intent of creating what the industry now calls build-to-rent communities. And so our strategy was very simple, Lance. It was, hey, let's take this scattered site model, because previously we were selling these institutional capital providers individual houses all across a geographical landscape, which, as you can imagine, hard to create efficiencies and economies of scale on the management side unless you just create insane amounts of critical mass. And so our thought was, hey, let's consolidate all the homes to one geographical location. We can then manage these communities like multifamilies. And then from a consumer perspective, we can amenitize these communities like little resorts and essentially create a lifestyle and a living experience that is currently not offered in the marketplace. And so, yeah, about 6 years ago, we broke off, and again, to execute on what we felt was a cutting edge strategy.
So, yeah, so that's really cool. So it wasn't called Build to Rent. You guys sort of thought, hey, this seems like a good idea, right? That's the classic entrepreneurial tale.
Yep.
So what was sort of
the need in the marketplace?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you see the opportunity and you do something about it. So from there, then what was that first challenge you ran into? I mean, like at that point, who's the competition? Who has? I mean, home builders are what the ones who typically are the one who are circling those sorts of sites, or are you competing with them, or did you guys have to go, partner with them? How do you go about sort of finding, hey, where to build these communities?
Yeah, so great. I would say on the first deal that we did, we knew we had this strategy. We scoured the entire country because this was a new concept. We knew that we had to get it right. And so, ironically, for our first community, we actually bought 15 acres at a closed bid auction that we were the only ones that showed up to. So it wasn't advertised. It wasn't advertised too well. So in that specific case, we had no competition other than ourselves. But it was funny. You could Google build to rent, wasn't a phrase. So to our knowledge, when we started, we were unaware of anyone else that was doing this. Lo and behold, there were other groups in different parts of the country doing the exact same thing as us. But at that time, I remember we had to go to 16 plus construction lenders to get our construction loan for the development. And I remember sitting down with each one of them, and all of them were, wow, that is a fascinating idea. This is pretty neat. Who else has done this? You could go on Google. And I remember I remember at the time, I think the only thing you could find on Google was a Lennar community in Reno, Nevada, that they had inadvertently sold to an operator that wanted to just turn it into single family rental homes. Mm-hmm. It wasn't their original business plan or intent at the beginning. It just kind of happened. Mm-hmm. And so it's been really neat and exciting. Fast forward to today, where it's arguably, the hottest sector in residential housing. And BuildtoRent has, before it was trying to grasp at straws, if you will, going into Google. And now it's quite a fun exercise to see all the exciting things that are happening in the space. But to circle back to your question in terms of sourcing opportunity, I like to say, Lance, that is probably the most challenging part of what we do. We can't go to the Whole Foods supermarket and just pick a land deal off the shelf that kind of checks all the boxes. Mm-hmm. What's unique is that we do compete with single family for sale builders. We compete with townhome developers. We compete with multifamily developers. What's interesting about the build-to-rent sector is that every operator kind of has a kind of different strategy. There's build-to-rent has become quite, I would say, quite a large umbrella, mm-hmm. Where you have some operators where their building communities look more like traditional for sale single family home neighborhoods. On the other end of the spectrum, you have other operators where build-to-rent is more of a just detached horizontal apartment community with everything in between. And so at Watermark, we have a couple different product lines, which allow us to fit into a multitude of different zoning classifications. So we're able to, when we find an infill location that is in an MSA that we have targeted, we're able to pull the trigger and execute.
So you're saying, some of these guys just take some subdevelopment and they just build homes like they were, going to sell them, but then they just happen to rent 100% of them out. I mean, but do you see where some of them sounds like a condo project or something? Do they end up at some point go, we're going to sell off, lot 117 to someone, or do they, how does that, I mean, do the people that are renting realize that everyone else is renting? Is that, so how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So I would say all the above to your question, Lance. Each operator kind of has their own strategy. At Watermark, we typically take raw land. That's by itself. So it's not a part of a master plan community. We're not buying finished lots. And that's largely because what we're trying to create is something truly special. We are trying to push the quote unquote typical living experience and want to provide something so much greater than just four walls in where it's this holistic lifestyle experience. Mm-hmm. And so in order to do that, we're oftentimes having to kind of write the narrative ourselves, if you will, by taking raw land so we can create the community that fits and aligns with our overarching objectives.
Got it. So that sounds like that's probably one of the big differences then. So my hunch would be the vast majority of people who woke up this morning, considered themselves executing build-to-rent strategies, are probably just buying finished lots and then going vertical, and then but the amenities piece will be left out because they clearly, probably maximized for density of homes and things like that. Whereas it sounds like you guys, not trying to put words in your mouth, but you go with raw land because it allows you to be more thoughtful about how you lay out the community. Is that accurate?
Totally. Yeah, no, that is accurate. It also allows us to build our product right? So sometimes, when you're going into finished lot scenarios, you're inadvertently put into a box based upon what was already platted and approved and what infrastructure is already in the ground. We may or may not have product that fits those dimensions. So from a production side, we're able to be more efficient by not, reinventing the wheel every time we're doing a community, but dragging and dropping, if you and just being able to create more efficiencies on the actual development front.
So are there, it sounds like you guys have targeted, certain areas. I mean, what is it that you look for, or, are there, what have you learned, I guess, that are there certain places where this whole strategy is more conducive, or the people that live in certain places are more open to this versus others that aren't? How does that work? I mean, I guess it just comes down to is there a part of the country where people are just like, hell no, I'd never want to live in something like this, or, all the way to hell yeah, I can't wait to live in a place like that?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. I'll answer your question in kind of two parts. There's kind of two sides of the equation here. You've got the front end, which is collaborating with a municipality in order to get these communities entitled. And then the latter part is on the consumer. So I'll start with the municipalities. Here's what's interesting about our space is that there's no zoning code that I'm aware of for build-to-rent. I know some municipalities are working to create these hybrid housing codes, but for the most part, oftentimes when you go into a municipality, this is the first time they've ever heard of build-to-rent. And so there's a lot of education that's involved. And right or wrong, some of these municipalities are a more conservative form of thought, where you start talking about rentals. We've had situations where cities are, no, we don't want that here. There's some negative stereotypes associated with rentals. And so that's where the education component, piece comes in, where it's, hey, this is not the people that live in these communities. Our average household income was over $170,000. These are renters by choice. These communities are upscale. They're well maintained. They're professionally landscaped and managed. And so, oftentimes, that kind of hell no response is more often than not on the municipality side of things until we're able to come alongside of them, collaborate with them, understand what their needs are, as well as educate them on what this product is, who the people are that live in these communities. And we've had a lot of success, coming from a collaborative approach, as well as educating them on the consumer. Now, on the consumer side of things, I would say it's a yes all across the board. I mean, really what we're catering to, and I mentioned to it earlier, is the exact same thing Amazon Prime is catering to. Yep. Is who doesn't want to live in a single family home, but not have to mow the yard, but not have to pick weeds, but not have to change light bulbs. It's, I live here in Denver, Colorado. I use this example all the time. People want to go climb Mount Quandary on Saturday, not do a bunch of yard work. Mm-hmm. And so what we offer people is all the benefits of living in a single family home with all the conveniences of a multifamily and the amenities of a resort. And so I think it's quite frankly the future of housing, and it's an absolute phenomenon that's occurring right now. And so I think the last nugget I'll leave you with is when we first started this out on this mission, this build-to-rent mission, our initial hypothesis was we were going to have a lot of millennials and a lot of empty nesters / baby boomers. Mm-hmm. And Lance, we couldn't have been more right and more wrong. Mm-hmm. In the sense that these communities and the value proposition they provide is so dynamic that the average age of one of our residents is 44 years old. We have every type of people and person you can possibly imagine, just because it's so compelling, right? I get to live in a home, but I don't have to worry about any of the maintenance, and I can leave when I want and not have to worry about anything.
Yeah, no, it is. It's especially for the shift that's taken place, and obviously even this whole COVID thing where, the amount of time that people have had to spend in their homes, and so to be at least in a community, right, in a place that's nice, but then that port, the mobility, right, that you're seeing now of people just wanting to be able to, like you said, to leave and go or follow the sun or whatever it is they want to do, that flexibility, they want it. And, this sort of affords that for them. And my hunch is, I guess it's probably early to say, but my hunch is that most people are renewing their leases. So like, unlike apartments, where, I don't know, your average, person's probably in there, 12 months. I mean, I don't know, 50, 18 months. It's not long. My guess would be that these places, they're moving in and they're like not moving out of them. Are you experiencing that?
Yeah. I mean, we've had people come to us and say, I want to sign a 5-year lease. I mean, and you can see where that makes sense. If I'm retired and I'm on a fixed income, I want to remove the uncertainty that if my hot water heater goes out or my dishwasher breaks, that, I may not be accounting for some large capital improvement items like that. And this completely removes that X factor, right? And so I think the other thing too is, these are homes kind of within the build-to-rent ecosystem, our community, they are typically more in line with a traditional or from the outside and from a product perspective, more in line with with for sale housing. So they're larger homes than a traditional multifamily with garages. Sometimes they have basements. And so people have a lot of things, right? And,
yeah.
I think it's having that additional storage, creates a more stickier resident, if you will.
Yeah. So, when you look at someone who's, attempting to execute the strategy, it seems to me that no matter what way you go, whether it's even raw land or even entitled land, you're going to have to deal with the municipalities. So the entitlement risk, I mean, if you're assessing a sponsor that's executing the strategy and they don't have anyone with experience dealing with municipalities and going through entitlement, I mean, it seems like this would be tough sledding if you didn't have it. Is that accurate?
I 100% would agree with that statement. I think that the biggest risk in this sector is by far entitlement risk. Obviously, anytime you're building something brand new and developing, there's risk associated with it. I would say on just the lease up, we're almost 1-for-1, meaning we build a house, we lease it up. We've experienced tremendous velocity on our absorption. And then what we also like the space is that people don't like real estate because it's not liquid, right? What we like about build to rent, which is different than traditional multifamily or even for sale single family, is the amount of exit options you have. We can sell homes individually. We can sell homes collectively. We can rent some. We can rent all of them. We can do a combination of all of that. So just having those additional levers to pull from the exit is another, I'd say risk mitigator.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then on the construction side, do you have like a home building company, or like you guys the home builders, or do you like contract with other home builders? How does that work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on our first community that we did, we actually were the home builder. We realized this might be too much to bite off on in the sense that we're literally blazing a trail for a new asset class within real estate. But also at the same time, we were trying to, build our own home building division. And so today we typically partner with regional builders in the markets that we operate in. On a macro level, looking, I would say most BuildtoRent operators, the vast majority of them, are partnering with some sort of build partner, whether that be a commercial GC or a for sale home builder. But I would say the vast majority are partnering with some sort of build partner, and largely because the value proposition we provide them is pretty incredible. It's, hey, how fast can you build these homes? Because we'll lease them up.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how they were going to, I guess, when you look at it from their alternative was what? They were basically going to have to take on more risk. And now they've got basically what amounts to sort of a capital partner with a built-in. So it actually allows them to do what they did. Maybe they don't make as much money as they would have otherwise, but they can do what they're best at. Is that what you're kind of finding, or?
Yeah. No, totally. It keeps people in their swim lanes, right? It's like, if you truly want to be the greatest at the world at what you do, you need to limit, you need to be laser focused, right? And so it allows us to be the greatest developer in the world, right? Let's focus on creating, designing, programming the best possible build-to-rent communities in the world. It allows our build partners to just focus on what they do best, which is just building. And unlike, when we partner with for sale home builders, we're music to their ears. They don't have to deal with any buyers. Yeah. They don't have to have any leasing or marketing. They don't need to have sales reps. They don't need to have a model home. We spec out all of our different floor plans, but all the interior spec out is the exact same, so it allows them to even further increase their efficiencies in their supply chain, just because we're talking about, hey, let's buy 20,000 square feet of this flooring, let's buy so on and so forth, all the way down the line. So really creates a favorable situation for all parties.
Yeah. Are there certain markets that you are more bullish on, or are there areas that, I guess, like what areas of the country are you sort of, zeroing in on that you really like? Obviously for this strategy, and just that you just think have got, a lot of growth and room in them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the most part, we like and target markets that have high cost barriers to entry on a new construction home, coupled with lower property taxes. So today we're currently operating in Nashville, the Texas markets, the Front Range out here in Denver, as well as up in Minneapolis. And I would say the number one thing that torpedoes a build-to-rent deal is the reoccurring property taxes, particularly in some states, like Texas or Colorado, where they have the mud districts and the metro districts, which are an increase from the base millage rate, can really be detrimental. And so that's kind of that spread that we're looking for. Again, what is kind of your average new construction home price, coupled with the property taxes. And so let's take Denver, Colorado, for example. You're seeing an average home price of $600,000 with some of the lowest property taxes in the country. So that tells me that we can get a premium for our rents. And then, the property taxes are obviously not going to impact us on the operational expense side, because that's a thing to consider, right? We're not selling these houses. We are the owner of all these homes. in essence, we're selling them to ourselves. We're holding them.
Yeah.
And so these communities are valued on a cap rate basis, on an income-based approach. So the reoccurring property tax expense can be quite a hefty multiple, and really devalue the value of your community.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So is there anything that you've seen, sort of, wrap up question here? I mean, is there anything that you've seen sort of your peers doing that just terrifies you? Because I know you guys pay really close attention to what's going on out there. I mean, is there things that you see others doing that you sort of, feels borderline reckless? Like, oh my Lord, like that's going to give us the whole, industry a black eye if guys keep doing that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Lance, and never want to sound, critical of another operator or developer. I think the one thing that has us concerned is just some of the quality of the product. I've been in situations with municipalities where they've allowed a build-to-rent operator to go in and it wasn't up to their level of excellence, meaning the city's level of excellence and expectations. And so it's been harmful to us because we've had to work extra hard in articulating why we're different and why our community is not going to result like the one that they had previous experience with. So from a macro perspective, I think that's what we're probably most concerned about, is so many different groups who have no build-to-rent experience entering into the space and not fully having an appreciation or understanding of how these communities work, how they should be built, how they should be designed, and they get something built and approved, and now they've got entire communities all fired up, which can lead to just a negative reputation for the industry itself.
Yeah. And that makes sense, because it does seem like there is, like you mentioned, the factors, you got multiple exit strategies with this, the liquidity of single family in general. But there is those institutional investors, who deal in, writing $100 million checks, they are looking to gobble up stuff like this. So you can see sort of that misalignment on the build-to-rent sponsor side of, sort of the, get these things up and occupied. And, and as most people who know, with single family, home building and stuff, is that a lot of the shoddy workmanship often doesn't sort of reel its head, for 3, 4, 5 years. Right. So, you get in and out of these things, and, obviously there's a lot more complexity that goes into it than that. But I mean, it definitely, the, cutting corners, does appear to, it's enticing, I'm sure, for people. Right. Because if their whole intention is to build it, lease it up, and get out of it, which that institutional capital sort of is out there, that liquidity, is that you think that's accurate, or am I off base there?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's so much, as like cutting corners, so to say, as just the product type itself. It's just value engineered to a point where it's, I guess like a little tiny home, if you will,
yeah.
or it's, or just even how they're laid out. I've had situations where, there's, again, circling back to what I mentioned earlier, there's quite a gamut in terms of what classifies build to rent. There's quite a few ways that you can skin this cat, particularly on some of the higher density stuff. I think it can be challenging for anyone to design something when you're solving for density, and design something that's dense, but also aesthetically pleasing. It's a challenge for anyone. And so I think that, with kind of going back to what I said previously, is that, some of these higher dense communities have not, turned out to, the level of excellence that these cities had initially expected. which has just led to a bad taste in the mouths of some of these municipalities. And we've kind of come in after the fact, and it's been extra challenging for us because we've just been lumped kind of in that bucket.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. And it's hard enough to begin with. And then you're sort of fighting an uphill battle when they've been burned, and it's going to sort of, it'll keep things moving really slow. Like we live in Portland, and, this is like the land of everything moving very slow. I mean, they are, hey, that's good. And it's good. It can be good. If good, of course, it can be bad. Obviously for developers, it's very vexing, and frustrating that, but that is just it, is that in some places aren't so much, and they, and they do get they move a little too quick, and then they get burned, and then it make it hard for everyone else. So it does seem that's, navigating that, the entitlement and the construction and all that. Like if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, it is development. But I think that it does seem that with the community like this, what you can get, I mean, what's your average sort of site? Like, were we talking like 50, 100 homes, or what is that sort of the typical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that's kind of our typical sweet spot is, probably around 100 homes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can get in and out, and, from beginning entitlement all the way through to a stable community in 6 years, 5 years, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I would say honestly less. And the biggest reason for that is, unlike traditional multifamily, where let's say we were building 100 homes, or 100 units rather, we would have to build all 100 units and get CO on the building before we could start leasing up.
Yeah.
What's unique about this is that these are individual structures, right? So we're able to build and fill, what we call, where we build a unit, we're able to lease it right up. And so from a stabilization standpoint, I mean, it takes us, I don't know, call it 3 to 4 years from entitlement all the way to finish construction. Well, if we were looking for a timely exit, if you look at kind of our trailing expenses and our rent roll, some of those initial units may have already been leased for over a year.
Yeah, that's nice.
So yeah, I mean, it all comes down to what your business plan is, what your strategy is. I think that there's an opportunity that if you wanted a quick exit, you have the ability to act like a Navy SEAL, if you will, get in and get out as quickly as possible. Or if you wanted to hold, and just realize the income, there's opportunity for that as well. I mean, I think we've also seen some pretty crazy rent growth, just in the BuildtoRent industry as a whole, and we've experienced it on our communities as well. Yeah,
well, that's great. Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time. It's great getting your insight. And it's definitely. I love stories like this. Where you come up with an idea and it doesn't have a name, and and you press into it and lean into it, and it becomes a thing. And it's pretty cool. It's cool to be at the forefront of something, and and you guys, I know, we didn't touch on it too much, but I think that, it for you guys, it's a genuine thing. Like you that this can impact communities, in kind of reverse trends that way too. So this is beyond just loving doing real estate deals for you guys. This really is there's purpose here. You can change people's lives. And
no, absolutely. Cool. I mean, yeah, go. No, I appreciate you saying that, Lance. I mean, that's what we're all about here at Watermark. I think if you just look at housing in general, it's a pretty archaic industry. I think the last time there was a big housing evolution was when garden style apartments became a thing. And maybe that was 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And people decided, hey, you know what? We should put a pool with these. Yeah. Voila, it's a new housing product. And nothing has really changed since now with this BuildtoRent phenomenon. And so I think we talk about it all the time, is that we're looking to build so much more than 4 walls and a roof, but again, to push the conventional living experience and really provide a lifestyle for people that has never been offered before.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Freddie, take care, my friend. It's good catching up. And
thank you, Lance.
All right, man. See you later.